Good evening, Council. We'll now call the Tuesday, January 26th public hearing meeting to order. First item up on the agenda is adoption thereof. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Blanchette. Shouldn't be any additions, so it's all in favor. Carries. I will read the public hearing statement for this evening, taking place at 735 Cranberry Lake Road. This public hearing is being convened pursuant to the terms of the Local Government Act prior to consideration of 1. Village of Valemount Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 835, 2020, and 2. Retail Cannabis Store Application CA 20101. At a public hearing, any person present who believes that they are affected by a matter being considered shall be given an opportunity to be heard on the matter contained in the proposal. Members of the public speaking on the proposal should, at the appropriate time, commence your address to this council by clearly stating your name and area of residence, upon which you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposal. Anyone who deems their interests are affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this meeting. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. All who speak at this public hearing will restrict their remarks to matters contained in the proposal. It is my responsibility as chairperson of this meeting to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. At the conclusion of a public hearing, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes to be proper representation made at the hearing. Under item 4, proposed zoning amendment ZA 2004 at 1451 Fifth Avenue, Village of Valemount zoning amendment bylaw number 835 2020 will now have a presentation by staff.
Thank you. So the first public hearing, or the first item of today's public hearing, is in regards to adding commercial daycare as a site-specific permitted use for 1451 Fifth Avenue, legally described as Lot A, District Lot 7352, Plan PGP 32327. 1451 Fifth Avenue was rezoned to high-density residential, R5, in August of 2020. In order to allow for a housing development with 14 affordable housing units for women and children in need on the second and third floors. At the time that zoning amendment was approved, staff were aware that commercial daycare use may be sought for this property, but funding had not yet been secured. Shortly after 1451 Fifth Avenue was rezoned to R5, the Ministry of Child and Family Development, MCFD, announced that they were providing the Village of Valemount with $2.88 million in capital funding to build a childcare facility on the subject property. The village is now seeking to amend the subject property zone to include a childcare facility on the ground floor, creating up to 72 childcare spaces. Of note, this is not the number of children that will be on site at one time because different programs run at different times. The new childcare spaces will be run by the authorized operator on behalf of the village. The childcare center would support families through the provision of more childcare spaces available to the whole community. The subject property spans between 5th and 6th Avenues, and the proposed building will have separate entrances for the daycare and the residential uses. 6th Avenue is predominantly low-density residential, and 5th Avenue is a combination of low-density residential and commercial around the subject property. The Valemount Health Clinic is to the east, and the vacant Thunder Valley Towing Building is to the west. 5th Avenue is the busiest street in Valemount. Any additional traffic would likely have negligible impacts, and 6th Avenue would likely see an increase in vehicles, but all parking is required to be provided on site. Staff believe that allowing commercial daycare use on this property would have a very positive impact on our community. It would create jobs and allow more parents to enter the workforce, as many families are currently unable to do so due to the lack of childcare spaces. A recent study, Valemount Childcare Needs Assessment and Strategy, funded through grants and supported by the village, states that the shortage of childcare in Valemount is worse than the provincial average. New daycare spaces could attract new families, businesses, and opportunities by providing more childcare spaces, which impacts our potential for economic growth and development. It also serves as an additional and accessible on-site resource for the residents within the building. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any written submissions or summary of submissions to be read aloud prior to these proceedings?
I have one written submission here to read, and I've just got the live YouTube stream up, and so far there's no comments on there. So starting with this, it's only one submission. It is from the Banks family within Valemount, BC, and reads, "Hi there, we are writing this email and including a screenshot to be looked at for this evening's meeting in regards to adding a commercial daycare in the 1451 Fifth Ave space. After reading many threads of Facebook posts on the discussion board, it was stated from the executive director that this particular space was not seen as an ideal location for daycare due to folks coming and going. Our only question is simply what has changed to now make this an ideal location for a daycare? Thank you for your time and consideration." And then the submission was submitted with a screenshot of a Facebook conversation that I'll read out as part of the submission. So a redacted person stated, "My only question is I thought from hearing things around town, of course, but I had heard that that property was being looked at for a larger daycare so that it could take on more kids and the wait list in our small town doesn't get so big." And then the response from the executive director, Lena, says, "We didn't feel this was an ideal location for a daycare due to folks coming and going, drop off and pick up. So we are focusing on just the housing portion. We are still partnering with the village for a brand new childcare space, just waiting on that funding decision, but our proposal is submitted. Absolutely one of our top priorities as a society." That's that submission, and we did get one other submission, but it wasn't relevant to the topics of this public hearing.
Thank you. Are there any, you mentioned YouTube, so is there any virtual presentations from the public?
I don't see anything here, but I'll continue to check throughout the process.
I have to call for a second. Wait a second. Nope, that's it. Yeah, I do actually have to call for a second time for any virtual presentations from the public via electronic means. And a third and final time. And then under section 4.4, is there a presentation by the proponent?
We are the proponent, so
there we are.
There's nobody else.
Does then, as council, do you have a response to any questions or comments raised by the public? Because you really can't ask questions of yourselves under 4.6. Nada? Mr. Robinson.
You may ask questions of staff if you prefer to about the
Questions to staff? To the planner? Do we have Macola online? Are they considered staff? Is there any questions for the planning staff? All right. Then we shall move forward. Move forward on the next subject matter. Under item 5, we have a cannabis retail store application at 1201 Fifth Avenue. And there is a request for a recommendation from council to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch, the LCRB. And under 5.1, we have reading aloud of written submissions or summary of submissions received prior to proceedings.
I have one written submission here that I will read aloud.
1 second, Megan, sorry. Just a point of order, Mr. Administrator. Under item 4, there was a presentation by staff first.
Yes.
Under item 5, we're now reading aloud of written submissions prior to the presentation from staff.
I'm just noticing that right now, but that's a switch. How would you like to proceed, Your Worship?
I believe we'll take a presentation from staff.
Shall I begin?
Yes, please, floor is
Okay.
yours.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so the second item of today's public hearing is in regards to the village's first application for a cannabis retail store at 1201 Fifth Avenue, legally described as Parcel A, Block 2, Plan PGP 9689, District Lot 7355. So cannabis retail stores were introduced as a permitted use in multiple commercial zones in the Village of Valemount zoning bylaw in August of 2019. Shortly thereafter, policy number 71 was adopted to regulate the application process. Public consultation and a public hearing helped to guide and inform this bylaw and policy, including an online survey completed by 144 people and an open house. In response to this public process, council approved retail cannabis use in our zoning bylaw. Exclusionary zones were established and no cannabis retail store may operate within 200 meters of a school, nor within 100 meters of various locations where children gather. Also, council set a maximum of 2 retail cannabis stores within Valemount. 1201 Fifth Avenue is zoned C1, Central Commercial, which permits retail cannabis stores and does not fall within any of the exclusionary zones. The applicant, Rural Leaf Limited, had a pre-application meeting with village staff in June of 2020. This application is compliant with the zoning bylaw, policy number 71 for cannabis retail licensing, and all other relevant bylaws and policies. The applicant is aware of future permitting requirements, including a building permit, business license, sign permit, and development permit. Staff sent this application out for internal and external referrals and no concerns have been received. If council provides a positive recommendation, it will be forwarded to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch, the LCRB, and continue to move this application forward, but does not necessarily mean that the LCRB will issue a license, who may still decline the application if it does not meet all of their requirements. Staff believe that this is an opportunity to diversify our local economy and recommends that council provide a positive recommendation to the LCRB for this application.
Thank you very much. Are there any written submissions or summary of submissions to be read aloud?
Yep, I have one written submission here. It is from Stephanie Hahn, who lives in Valemount. Dear council members, I am writing in regards to the proposed cannabis store on Fifth Avenue. The question that needs to be asked is if the location on Fifth Avenue for the Robson Valley Cannabis Store is appropriate and in the best interests of Valemount residents and business owners. The simple answer is no. If our local pharmacy on Fifth Avenue chose to sell medicinal cannabis only, there would be less opposition on my part. Who is this Robson Valley Cannabis Store being opened for? According to Mr. Schaefer, Mr. Green, and Mr. Abbott, Valemount is a pretty popular place for people to come to and recreate, so that is definitely worked into our calculations. It sounds as though their target clientele are non-residents, the tourists. In the winter, most visitors are sledders, for whom this store might be a positive addition to this town, although parking will become an issue. In the summer, we see many family visitors in this village for whom this kind of store on our main shopping street may well be a deterrent and result in residents of Valemount being judged by these tourists. How is Valemount being marketed and advertised around the province? Come to Valemount for some recreation and don't forget to shop at our new, easily accessible cannabis store on 5th Avenue. Nice. What about the local residents, specifically Valemount's youth and young adults who are at most risk? Is a location for a cannabis store with easy access and in the middle of our village in plain view good for our local population? What kind of people will this store attract? Have the local businesses, especially hotels and motels, been consulted? It's one thing to allow a cannabis store to operate in Valemount. It's another to have it on 5th Avenue in plain sight, so easily accessible, even tempting. How often do we locals drive or walk down 5th Avenue? Plenty. Local people that may never have thought to try cannabis might now get the idea to try it. Perhaps they will use it regularly and become addicted. What kind of effect will this have on our very limited healthcare resources? We have enough alcoholics and drug users in this village. To open this store on 5th Avenue is completely irresponsible. I hope that Valemount Council members will take their responsibility toward these vulnerable residents of Valemount serious. So no, I do not want a cannabis store on 5th Avenue or anywhere else in this town, and I do not want my young, impressionable children to have to look at this store either. Does it affect my interest in land? Depending on the clientele the store attracts, it very well might.
Just the one?
Just the one, and no comments on the YouTube chat.
I'm not sure how to speak up at this moment, but my name is Alfred Schaefer. I'm the proponent.
Just in one, we'll get to that portion.
Okay, cheers.
Thank you. Just keep those comments fresh. Ms. Vicentes, I'll ask for a second time for verbal presentations from the public.
None. Other than.
And a third and final.
None.
Thank you. Under 5.4, we'll have a presentation by the proponent. If you just give us the good grace of your name and your area of residence.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Alfred Schaefer, and I reside in Smithers, BC.
Welcome.
Thank you. I'm assuming you guys can all hear me all right. So I'd just like to start off by saying hello, members of council and members of the public that are here today. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and address any concerns you may have. Obviously, it'd be a lot better if we could be there in person, but as we all know, it's not really the time for that. So my name is Alfred Schaefer, and I'm here on behalf of Rural Leaf Cannabis and our proposed location here in Valemount. My business partners and I have a couple stores in Smithers and in Houston, BC. And we've been fortunate enough to see those grow into sustainable services for each of these communities. A little bit about myself and my business partners, Peter Green and Mike Lavitt. We all live in Smithers, BC, as I mentioned. Peter and I both grew up here, and Mike grew up in a small town in Ontario. So we're all pretty familiar with the small town life. We all volunteer around our communities, and like many people in small towns, we're engaged in trying to make it a better place for our families and neighbors to live in. We currently employ 9 other people in Smithers and Houston, and we've had a very positive reception in both of these towns. Now, cannabis use, it's not new, and I can almost guarantee that there are people within the community that are selling it right now. We're offering something slightly different. We are offering access to legal cannabis. And this is a product that's tested by Health Canada to ensure purity and safety. It's strictly regulated, and a large part of our job is keeping that out of the hands of minors. My business, our shops are safe places that promote the legal use of cannabis. And we seek to educate our patrons on things like, as I said, age restrictions, keeping away from children, where it's legal to consume, recognizing that it will impair you and you need to act responsibly and plan accordingly. You know, things like not driving or operating machinery while you're under the influence and not using it at work. And on top of that, we generally try to be a source of scientific knowledge about the plant and its effects. Needless to say, my business partners and I are all enthusiastic about cannabis, but we would definitely not be in this business if it was not legal. If you grant us the opportunity to conduct business in Valemount, you'll be adding to the tax base, creating employment for people in the community, and giving access to a service that is currently only available through the black market. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge our friends, Justin Wilkes and Darcy Sloan. Justin is on the call here too, and who, if approved, will be the future managers of this store. Justin, who some of you probably know from around town, is the original creator of the Robson Valley Cannabis Co. concept, and he will continue to be a major component of this store. Him and Darcy have reserved the right to buy into the store if we are successful in getting up and running. That's basically all from me. I'd just like to thank you guys again for giving me the opportunity to speak, and I am available to answer any questions you may have.
Well, thanks very much. I guess my first question is, you've listened to some concerns addressed by members of the public. Do you wish to respond to any of those questions or comments?
Yeah, for sure. I think that the comments and the concerns that we heard were some that are pretty familiar. Like I've been to a couple of the council meetings already, and we definitely had those concerns echoed in Houston. It wasn't quite as prominent in Smithers, but we've definitely heard these things. And you know, the thing with what we're selling is it's a legal product, and we very much work, you know, hand in hand with the authorities to, you know, keep as little disturbances as possible going on. I think that I don't have statistics to back this up, so I'm a little bit wary about making broad statements, but in the towns where, you know, legal cannabis is accessible, they usually find that it actually does the opposite of many of the concerns that were voiced by the previous commenter there. Yeah, like this is, it's a whole different ballgame here. Like it's not, you know, how it is with the black market, where we have to be extremely transparent in everything we do, all our business dealings, and we're inspected regularly to ensure that we're, you know, following all the rules that are set out for us. And yeah, we're just trying to operate in the community and be a positive source within the community.
Thank you very much. So under 5.6, are there any questions of the proponent by council? Councilor Blanchette?
So my question is, if I'm walking down Fifth Avenue and I look into your shop from the street, what will I see in the windows?
You will see, basically you won't be able to see into the store. We put up basically like one-way stickers so that there's usually like some kind of an image. In Smithers, we have a picture of our local mountain, and we're gonna do something very similar in Valemount, you know, probably like some kind of mountain scene. And that's basically all you'll see from the outside. When you're inside the store, you can see outside, but you can't see into the store from the outside.
Okay, great, thank you.
Councilor McQuaid?
I was curious as to how many jobs you anticipate creating here, and whether you say 9 jobs between Smithers and Houston, and whether these are part-time minimum wage jobs or full-time or skilled training, or can you fill us in a bit on that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure exactly how many jobs it would create, but ballpark guess would be 3 to 4. We're gonna have, as I mentioned, Justin and Darcy as managers. So those would be like higher paying jobs than minimum wage. We start at minimum wage, but we offer like a wage increases based on like how many hours you work, so you can quickly move up from minimum wage. And the jobs tend to be, in terms of this, you know, everyone has to go through a security screening. And then we offer training like, you know, in things like product knowledge. We try to train our staff to be kind of like sommeliers, but for cannabis.
Thank you. Other questions?
Were mine too.
Oh, okay. Hearing none. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch. So I now adjourn this public hearing. And then call to order the Tuesday, January 26, 2021 regular meeting of council to order. First item of business is to adopt the agenda. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor G, any errors or omissions? Any additions? Hearing none, all in favor? Carries. Item 3.1, adoption of the minutes of the previous regular council meeting being January 12th, 2021. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, any errors or omissions arising? All in favor? Carries. No delegations this evening, but we do have correspondence for action under 6.1. We have a request for support from Thompson Valley Charters Limited. Recommendation here to provide a letter of support of Thompson Valley Charters Limited proposal to provide an intercity bus service from Kamloops through Valemount to the BC Alberta border. Councillor G, Councillor Pearson, any discussion? Councillor Blanchette.
It's a great opportunity for a lot of people that need to have this service. And so I'd welcome the letter.
Others? Councillor G?
I think it's safe to know that we currently don't have any service going from Valemount to towards Jasper. VRL currently isn't even running, so.
On that, do we know if there's a connector at the BC Alberta border? Like, do people just walk across the border? Do they get on at Portal Lake or?
I was kind of hoping that they go all the way to Jasper.
I don't know if that's available under the public transportation.
Yeah,
We talked about that to the former minister regarding that. Further discussion? I'm hoping they take on a bit of a cargo proponent, as anything that comes from Kamloops, I have to go and pick up in Clearwater, because that's as far as north as ACE comes. There's no further discussion. I'll call the question. All in favor? Carries. Is there anything out of the reading file the council would like to raise? Councillor Blanchette?
The vaccination priority for our municipal employees. I was wondering how the rest of council felt about this. We do have our staff that are trained in specifics for public works. We don't have anybody else that can just jump and fill in. I would count them as essential service workers, and I would like to see them prioritized for vaccine if they so wish.
So you would like to support the city of Nelson and their letter to the Ministry of Health?
I would, yeah.
Is there a seconder? Councillor G, that we do write a letter in support of the city of Nelson to the Minister of Health regarding the vaccination priority of essential critical infrastructure municipal employees. Fair. Any discussion? All in favor? Councillor Pearson,
Yeah, just a quick comment. I mean, in watching this week's news, this has been quite a controversial topic. They're being lobbied from every corner as to being essential service and next in line kind of thing. I mean, it's a difficult situation. I mean, especially right now, we don't know what our supply chain is. I mean, I support the motion, but I know they're being hit from every corner. I mean, dentists, first responders are not really considered essential service. So, yeah, it's a difficult call.
Well, it's certainly something that we could raise in case it was missed during that decision-making process. I mean, the ability to flush a toilet and supply clean drinking water is pretty high up there on the needs of our citizens.
Yeah, no, very much so.
Further discussion? All in favor? It's carried. There's a few other items if anybody would like to raise a question. There's one on the LGLA Leadership Forum, or the ability to attend that conference. Councilor Pearson?
Yeah, that's one I was going to speak to. I would definitely be interested in attending in lieu of a formal NCLGA conference. I think it'd still be a valuable thing for those councillors who wish to attend.
Are you looking for, this is the time to ask for attendance to that conference?
Okay. So, yeah, I guess I would make a motion to support those councillors who wish to attend
Second,
the forum.
Councillor Blanchette. You're the mover. You'd like to attend?
I would like to attend.
Any other folks?
I will not be able to attend due to a health
Okay.
appointment.
Councillor G, anything strike your eye on the program?
Unfortunately, it's all during my business working hours, so I don't have enough notice to book the time off.
Councillor McLean, anything strike your fancy?
I can't commit to anything till I resolve things around my mom's health.
You bet. Right. Family first. Councillor, I was really interested in the presentation by Don Lidstone around business recovery and best practices. If you could attend that and take comprehensive notes for us all, that'd be we'd be all grateful. Further discussion on attendance? All in favor? Carries. We are up to speed on the COVID province-wide restrictions being the first item of business, and moving forward, I think staff will be adding that as a pretty concrete first piece of reading file. So it'll be 2 weeks old, but it'll be there. Administrative reports under 8.1, access to contraception and feminine hygiene products. A couple of recommendations here that we'll separate. First one is that the village provides menstrual products and condoms in its public facilities at no cost to the public, and that $1,555 is factored into the 2021 budget. Councillor G, Councillor McLean, discussion. Councillor McLean.
Are we intending to open washrooms in the tourist information center at all this year? And what other places would we be thinking of putting these products into?
Mr. Administrator.
The plan is to open the washrooms to the public this year. We're hoping to have, it does depend on COVID, of course. If we have a third wave, then we're looking at something completely different, but it is the plan. But where these will be placed would be in the visitor center, and they'll also be placed in the hall. And I believe that is all, actually, those two facilities, the public facilities that we own.
Both parks in the park.
I thought about that one. I'm sure we could. Sure, we could.
And then restrooms down at the, not Johnny, the other one, is it
Oh, Sportsplex.
Sportsplex? Yeah. Okay, I was wondering how the 1,555 had come to be is all. That's,
It had to be an estimate, unfortunately, and the staff member calculated it out in the report, how she broke down.
Further questions? Councillor Pearson?
Got a couple concerns. One, factoring in as a budget item for all members of the community to cover the cost. I mean, I would like to think that we could find a partner for the program that would help with that. And there is currently a organization in the community doing a drive looking for donations of the same products. And I'm not sure how that would be covered off in the community, but those are my two concerns.
To that, I would say we can factor $1,500 into the budget. And if we don't spend it because we found community partners and other organizations that we can work with, $1,500 we won't be spending.
Okay.
So it's more difficult to add things to a budget than it is to take it away throughout the year. Further discussion? All in favor? Oh,
I just want to, since I was the one that brought this forward, just to speak to it, that as a woman, I have been caught out a time or two in a public space, and it can be a very humiliating experience to not have access to a simple thing such as a feminine hygiene product. So it's something that affects all women, not just those that can't afford it. So I definitely am in support of it. And like you said, you can't take it out, you can't add it in later. And if it's in our ability to put it in the budget, then I'm in support.
certainly is right now. Further discussion? Councilor Blanchette?
So hearing about the other possible partner, we should send out a letter to see if there's any interest in partnering. And then we'll know if, sooner rather than later.
Yeah, certainly will. Councilor Pearson?
One other comment. I mean, I hate to look at the dark side of society all the time, but the other thing I would look at is how do you control it? It's not a single serve system, so we have no way of that one person that needs to stock up at home going in. Once people know it's there for free with nobody watching, I think but that's me looking at the dark side.
It may very well happen. Councilor?
So if there's other municipalities doing this, it doesn't hurt to reach out and find out what their system is and see what they have in play to protect from that, because that is a real concern, right? If we're spending money, then we have to make sure we protect it. So let's reach out, find out what they're doing, and put your thinking caps on. There's nothing saying you can't have a basket sitting on a counter. It's life. Don't be embarrassed.
Yeah.
Call question? Councilor McLean?
it's probably unnecessary to say that. I think we're all in support, but to me, these products are as necessary as TP in the toilets.
Good point. Sometimes that goes missing too. I'll call the question. All in favor? It's carried. We have a second recommendation that council supports a letter to the BC government calling for universal prescription contraceptive coverage through the BC Medical Services Plan at no charge to the public. Councillor McLean, Councillor Pearson, discussion. Our employment health tax just went up a bit. That's okay. All in favor? Carries. 8.2, we have a report to be received under the strategic priorities progress July through December 2020. Motion to receive, Councillor G, Councillor Blanchette, discussion. Councillor Blanchette.
Just thank you to staff. This helps quite a bit because you forget things over time. So it's nice to have this refresher. So thank you very much. A lot of work that went into it and it's greatly appreciated.
Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, it's great to see it on paper. I mean, we don't realize what's going on in the other half of the building here. So this is a very, very good visual reminder of what's being done.
Other discussion? All in favor of receipt? Carries. 8.3 Northern Development Initiative Trust. Staff are looking for to be directed to apply for the NDIT Love Northern BC program for 2021. Councillor G, Councillor Blanchette, discussion. All in favor? It's carried. 8.4 under the Canada Jobs Summer Jobs Program, staff are looking to be directed to apply for the Canada Summer Jobs Program for wage subsidy for one visitor information counselor. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor G, discussion. All in favor? Carried. Under 8.5, Cannabis Retail Store Application CA 2001. I have a couple recommendations here. First recommendation, the Village of Valemount Council approves provides a positive recommendation to the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Board, the LCRB, with respect to Cannabis Retail Store Application CA 2001. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor McLean, discussion. Councillor Blanchette.
So just wanted to thank Stephanie Hahn for her letter. I understand some concerns. I think that these people specifically, they have had businesses before in Smithers is a big city. And we do have steps in place to make sure that it fits with all of the criteria, the zoning, the bylaws, policies, everything. So I'd like to think that this will be a positive thing. I do support it.
Councillor Pearson.
Yeah, I would echo that too, and thanks for the letter. The one thing that does jump out to me is the concern about being in plain sight, and in my mind, I would rather it be in plain sight versus in a back corner. I've been in a number of communities that have them. You wouldn't really even know that they're there. The windows are completely dark from the street side. You can't see what's going on inside. So I really don't think that's a concern. And the fact that it is right there on 5th, people will police people. People will know. So yeah, I support it.
And to that, the province or the provincial requirements for security, transparency, inventory controls, storefront visual requirements are extremely stringent, as expressed in other communities. Further discussion? All in favor? This carries. 8.6 bylaw. Oh, thank you very much. I already had that ticked off. Second recommendation under 8.5, council has considered the impact on the community and feels that this proposed cannabis retail store would have an overall positive impact on residents, local businesses, Valemount's economy, and tourism. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor McLean, any further comments, discussion? All in favor? It carries. 8.6 bylaw enforcement summary report, July through December 2020, that the report be received. Councillor Pearson, Councillor McLean, any discussion? All in favor of receipt? Carries. Under bylaws and policies, 9.1 zoning amendment bylaw number 835, that it be given that Village of Valemount zoning bylaw number 610, 2007 amendment bylaw number 835, 2020 be given third reading. Councillor G, Councillor Blanchette, any discussion? All in favor? Carries. Under 9.2, Development Procedure Bylaw, Amendment Bylaw number 839/2020 be adopted as presented. Councillor Blanchette, Councillor Pearson, any discussion on final adoption? All in favor? Carries. 9.3, Village of Valemount Animal Control Policy number 80/2021 be approved by council. Councillor McLean, Councillor Pearson, discussion. All in favor? Carries. Are there any notices of motion coming forward today? Then I will hear council reports. Under 12.1, Councillor Jean.
I have one item. On January 20th, I attended the BC Liberal Caucus Town Hall meeting on COVID-19. The topic was healthy and safe communities. It was well attended. There was a lot of issues raised from a lot of different communities. One community is losing their airline service, which is their supply chain. Discussions about the vaccine rollout, housing, homeless situation in northern BC, farming, agriculture, mental health, homeless youth in the Lower Mainland, seniors outreach. And the main thing that we came away with was that this pandemic has not affected us all equally. It has affected some a lot more than others. Some are doing okay and a lot of others are really struggling. Having to switch to virtual platforms has been very difficult on a lot of people. And one of the last things that MLA Shirley Bond said, and I wrote it down because it really stuck with me, was that in looking in such a negative situation as a pandemic, to try and find the one positive thing that's come from it is that COVID has given us an opportunity to connect in a way that we never have before. And so that's, I'm going to remember that. And that's my report.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking time from your day to attend that. Councillor Blanchette.
On January 11th, we had an elder care meeting. We're plugging along. On the 12th, we had a clean air task force, and I believe we have some minutes coming forward for the next council meeting, I believe. On the 18th, I attended the NCLGA webinar of increasing high-speed connectivity in rural BC. And there is a way, we just have to figure it out. And there's some really great people that are working on it. And so fingers crossed, it too shall come here. What was really quite funny was that during this webinar, some of us were having internet problems. It was just like, so it sort of hit home there for a lot of us that had to keep zooming in and out, literally. Also on the 18th, we had our child and youth mental health meeting. And on the 21st, we had our housing meeting, and minutes will come forward to that as well. That's everything.
Thank you. Yeah, it's pure irony that, we're all being asked to meet virtually, and then some of us just can't.
Yeah.
Councillor McLean.
On January 12th, I also attended the Clean Air Task Force Committee meeting. And that evening of January 12th, I attended an online town hall meeting to hear the results of a report commissioned by the province in response to calls to construct a weir across Kukanuka Reservoir, which spans the BC-Montana border south of Jaffrey. Many of the issues with Kukanusa Dam drawdown are the same as ours are here in Kinbasket. This study was done as a result of work done by locals in the area with tourism businesses that could really benefit from a weir, which could keep the water in the area for tourism and recreation. The link to this report is on the Columbia Basin Trust website and also on the Columbia Basin Trust's Facebook page. It's worth a read and is entitled Kukanusa Reservoir Dam Final Draft PDF. It's interesting because there are a lot of similar problems and a lot of the same things being said by locals and businesses. Preliminary figures peg this weir at costing as low as 80 million, but it could cost up to a maximum of 1.1 billion, depending on the measures taken. Estimates for this project are most likely to fall around the 400 million mark, with annual operation and maintenance varying between 560,000 to 1.4 million. So there's a big gap in estimates there. It was interesting though, and I encourage anyone who would like to have a look at that link. On January 15th, I attended a Columbia Basin Trust Local Government Committee online meeting to discuss the final touches on the updated recommendations this committee will present to the treaty negotiating team. This process has been confidential up to this point, but tomorrow a press release will make these recommendations public. On January 21st, I attended a Zoom webinar put on by BC Hydro as part of the public consultation process required as they prepare their integrated resource plan toward their goal of achieving Clean Power 2020. And I believe that there is still an opportunity online to fill out surveys of this Clean Power 2040 on BC Hydro's site. That's it for me.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll raise it when we come to questions. Councillor Pearson.
January 18th, I also attended the NCLGA webinar on high-speed connectivity, and yeah, the irony was not lost on any of us on the on screen as various people dropped off and popped back up again. And into that note, I will encourage everybody to go online and do the speed test both on your computers and your phones, and fill in the information as to what your plans are, because they truly believe there's 1050 service in a lot of our communities and we don't have it. So I encourage everybody to look for the link on the village page to do that web test. January 19th, tourism committee meeting, and that would be it for me this week.
Awesome. I'm seeing a lot of similarities in some of the meetings that we've been attending, and the subject matter. So on January 13th, I did have a follow-up meeting with Simp First Nation and the First Nations Major Projects Coalition. And then on the 13th, later that day, we had a presentation from TANX, who did the connectivity gap analysis for the Regional District Fraser Fort George. Basically, they, to Councillor Pearson's point, are proving out that we are not served. And it later on, I'll get into that. On the 14th, I had a Columbia Broadband Corporation board meeting. Again, the Columbia Broadband Corporation trying to prove out the 50 or so communities in the Columbia Basin that have been identified as ineligible for federal funding because they show this bright blue marker up along every street, whereas again, TANX and the Columbia Broadband Corporation are proving it's all red. Red is not good when it comes to color codes. January 19th had January 14th, that afternoon, had a briefing with Emily Bond. She afforded me 45 minutes, which was way longer than what our schedule was supposed to be. We had a good back and forth on the local economy, tourism, visitation, community health, and more to that later. January 20th, the start of the budget considerations for the regional district and committee of the whole. And that evening, a VARTA board meeting. On the 21st, continuation of the regional district Fraser Fort George, starting with the Emergency Management and Public Safety Committee, which I'm now chair. And then into that afternoon for regular board. On the 25th, had our 2021 inaugural NDIT Prince George Regional Advisory Committee. A lot of good applications coming through that. And then that afternoon, right after that, was a meeting with the Southeast BC Connectivity Committee, which is comprised of the regional district, East Kootenay, Central Kootenay, and the Columbia Shuswap Regional District. That committee is putting forward a application to the Universal Broadband Fund, being sponsored by the federal government on our behalf, I think to the tune of $41 or $49 million for last mile projects. So to your point, Councillor Blanchette, it could be here before you know it. And then today had a very good briefing with Valemount Emergency Services. Motion to receive. Councillor Pearson, Councillor G, any questions? Comments? Councillor McLean, that report, I like the last few recommendations in that report. Basically, did anybody ask the states?
Yeah, they could, what is it, the US military? Yeah,
Corps of Engineers.
couldn't we just get them to change their mind and leave water in there? And it just floored everyone on the entire call, right? It really did.
And that press release for the recommendations from the local government committees coming up tomorrow.
Yes, it is. Yeah, we'll probably come to you. It's coming right to elected officials like you and Danielle, and I'm not sure who all else, but the press, of course.
Sure.
Yeah, but it is tomorrow morning. We have another meeting tomorrow morning, but in the background, this will be released by the time we meet at 10 o'clock.
Mr. Robinson, we can share that to our social media channels. It'll be, I'm sure there'll be some great recommendations coming out of that report. Two agendas. All in favor of receipt? Carries. Were there any public comments received on items considered as part of the approved agenda?
There are no comments.
Cute.
Sorry. When did just come in? So this is from Ralph Carl.
Okay.
I don't know what the context of this is. Says, I would like the council members to speak to how they feel this will benefit the families in this town. I don't know if you can answer that because we don't know the context.
I don't. I can't.
Oh, sorry, it was for canvas.
Well, as outlined in the staff report, there's good opportunities for employment and increase in commercial tax base. Motion, please, to receive public comments. Councillor G, Councillor Blanchette. All in favor of receipt? Carries. No need to proceed in camera, so we'll ask for adjournment.